Hi, welcome to BFS Wargaming. It's Patrick here with another video. We're going to talk about what is the ITC and how to play the ITC. So first off, what is the ITC? So the ITC is a different format of Warhammer 40k. So it's still using the Warhammer 40k rules. But what happened is many years ago, when Games Workshop sort of come out of the tournament scene, they stopped doing any tournaments or anything like that. Well, the guys from Frontline Gaming, who have got a YouTube channel actually, and I'll link it in the description, I think it's Reese and Frankie, they took over the tournament scene. Well, they made up some new missions and rules for the tournament scene. And so the ITC stands for the International Tournament Circuit. So they've made these different missions, slightly different way to play the game. But you're still using all of the 40k data sheets, you're using all of the 40k rules. So we'll go in and we'll start talking about exactly how the ITC works and how to play it. So starting off, we have the setup, the deployment. So the deployment after this video may change because Chapter Approved 2018, the missions and deployment changed for that. So I'm not sure if the ITC will then adopt that way of deployment. But at the moment, the deployment, as of this video, the deployment is still the same way as it was in the core rulebook for 8th edition. So we're just talking purely for 8th edition. The ITC do update their rules and the way it's played, so you might have to go back and look at the mission pack. I'll put a link for the description for Frontline Gaming's website, so you can go on there, you can download the mission pack and mission guidelines, and then so you can have all of the information. So basically how it works is you set up the same way as you would. You choose a scenario. So there's 6 different missions, as there is in the core rulebook. But there's different, they show you, I'll put it up on the green screen. So they show you how to play. Some of them show you where to put the objectives. Some of them show you, give you details on where to put the objectives. So there's, yeah, there's those 6 different missions, and then how you score points is you have primary objectives and you have secondary objectives. So the primary objectives is when you start on, so whoever goes first, they have their turn. If they hold one objective, at least one objective, so 1 or more objectives, and they've killed 1 or more units, they get a point for holding one, they get a point for killing one. Okay, so hold 1, kill 1, you get a point. It then goes to your opponent's turn. They can then score a point for holding 1 and killing 1 as well. Now, at the end of the battle round, so after the second player's turn, you then look to see who holds more objectives. So if you hold more objectives than your opponent, you get an extra point. If you've killed more units than your opponent, you get an extra point. If either of those things are even, so if you've both killed 2 units and you've both held 2 objectives, then there's no extra bonus points given or extra primary objective points given. So that's just, there is, in some of the scenarios, there's bonus points you can score as well. So you have to check them on each individual scenario. And then what we do is we move on to the secondary objectives. So secondary objectives, what you do is at the beginning of the game, you choose your secondary objectives depending on who your opponent is or what you feel your army can score. So we'll go into the secondary objectives and talk about what they are and how you score them. So the first one is called Headhunter. So you score 1 point for each enemy character that is destroyed. And all of these secondary objectives, you can get a maximum of 4 points. So say, for instance, your opponent has 8 enemy characters. Once you've killed 4, you can't score any more points for Headhunter. Okay, so you can only score 4 points for each secondary objective. Also, if there's some that have like a little asterisk on them, if they have that on them, that means you can't score both. So for the example here is, if such a unit would award points for multiple secondaries, you must decide which it scores at that time it is destroyed. For example, if you choose Marked for Death and Big Game Hunter, which we'll go into, and mark an enemy rhino, you must decide which secondary mission you earn a single point when you destroy it. So you can't score 2 secondary objectives off of the same thing. So we've gone through Headhunter, Kingslayer. So you choose an enemy model that is a character, so it doesn't have to be the Warlord. You earn 1 point for every 2 wounds of damage it loses cumulatively. In the instance where a character may regenerate wounds or resurrect during the course of the game, the total wounds it loses over the course of the game are counted towards this mission or objective. If the model selected has the character and vehicle or monster keywords, you earn 1 point for every 4 wounds it loses instead of 1 point for every 2. So basically, if it's a vehicle or monster, it's going to probably have over that 10 wounds, so then you'll be able to shoot it whether it's the closest or not, so that's why you get less for that. If the character is also your opponent's Warlord, earn 1 additional point if it is destroyed. So that's good. So if your opponent has 6 wounds, you can score the 3 points for the 2 wounds you take off, plus the point once it's destroyed, if it's a Warlord, so you get your 4 points from that. So marked for death, you choose 4 opponent units with a power level of 7+, earn 1 point for each of these units that's destroyed. So you basically mark 4 units, you decide, they have to be over 7 power levels, so you might have to ask your opponent, see his list, see what opponents have, what units have the 7+ power level, and then you choose those ones and then you destroy them. But remember, if it's got over 7 power level, and then you choose, for instance, Big Game Hunter, which is 1 point for every enemy model with the monster or vehicle keyword with 7+ wounds destroyed. Big Game Hunter. So if you were to get marked for death in Big Game Hunter, you need to be careful because you can't score points for destroying the same unit. So if you mark for death, for instance, a Flying Hive Tyrant, and you killed it, you'd only get 1 point for either Big Game Hunter or marked for death. So you choose which one you want to take it for. Then you've got Titan Slayers, which is a very good one when you're going up against something like Knights. So for every 8 wounds lost by enemy units with the Titanic keyword, in total throughout the course of the game, earn 1 point. So you've basically got to get 24 points off of a model, and you can get the 4 points for... Sorry, not 24 points, that's an absolute lie. It's 16, it's 32 wounds off of a model, or off of multiple models to get that. So we move on to the Reaper. Okay, so the Reaper, for every 20 enemy models destroyed, earn 1 point. So if you're going up against like a sort of quite hoardy army, there's a lot of models on the table, then the Reaper might be a really good one. So if you know they've got like a lot of screening units, a lot of chaff, and you feel like you can take them out, then you can score 1 point for every 20 models. So, you know, if you're going up against something like Orcs with a lot of Grots, and a lot of boys, there's a good chance you could clear 80 models quite easily and you'd get your 4 points for the Reaper. Then you've got Recon. So have a unit partially in each table quarter at the end of your player turn. A unit may only count as being in the table at any time for the purposes of this rule, 1 point per turn. So, I mean, Recon's good if you've got a lot of flyers. You can quite easily then get into them 4 table quarters. Or maybe like just a really mobile army. You've got like a lot of bikes or, you know, jet bikes, fast moving vehicles, stuff like that. That might be something that you could quite easily rack up that 1 point per turn. Behind enemy lines, if at least one of your units is wholly in the enemy deployment zone at the start of your turn, earn 1 point. A unit is wholly in the if every model in the unit is at least partially in the enemy deployment zone. So every model's got to be at least partly in there, so you can't have like a big line going from one end to the other. But the model doesn't need to be completely in that zone, but every model needs to be partially in there. And obviously it's scored at the start of your turn, so you'd have to wait until your opponent had their turn to then get it at the start of yours. So that's obviously not going to be something you can score in turn 1. The Butcher's Bill. So destroy 2+ enemy units during a player turn to earn 1 point. So it's just taking out 2 units a turn, which probably sounds easy and it actually isn't. Obviously, depending on what army you're playing. If again they've got a lot of chaff and small units, that could be very achievable. If they've got a load of knights, that might not be achievable. But a nice simple one there. Ground control, 1 point for each objective held at the end of the last battle round played. So if you feel like you're going to massively outnumber your opponent at the end of the battle, and you feel like you're going to have really good board control. So for instance, you might be playing Nurgle Plague Bearers, which are very, very, very good at board control and very resilient, and they can get a lot of board control. Well, if you think they will be able to last, then you can earn 1 point for each objective held at the end of the last battle round. So that could be a good one. And then lastly, we have Old School. So earn 1 point for the following. First Strike, you know, we all know what First Strike is. Kill an enemy unit in the first battle round. Slay the Warlord. So the enemy Warlord is destroyed before the end of the game. Line Breaker, so have one of your models within your opponent's deployment zone at the end of the game. Again, we all know what that is. And Last Strike, an enemy unit is destroyed in the last battle round played. So, you know, you can obviously get 1 point for each, so you can then rack them up during the course of the game. So you get to choose 3 of these secondary objectives. And so you obviously choose the 3 that you feel that are going to bet that your armies can achieve, and that you have to look at your opponent's army and see what you think that secondary objectives they'll give away easily. So I'm not going to go through every scenario, but I'll talk through scenario 1. So scenario 1 is seize ground. So 6 objectives are placed as shown. I'll put the thing up here. So you get a bonus point if a player holds or contests 5 or more objectives at the end of their player turn. You gain 1 point. So again, this is good for armies that have got a lot of board control. You might be able to get, you know, be contesting a lot. It shows you where to place the objectives. So hopefully I'll get that photo up. And for an objective to be contested, both players have models within 3 of it. Neither controls it. This typically occurs because both players have an equal number of models within range of the objective, and either none of them are objectives good or all of them are. So it then gives you a little score sheet, so you can look at how to tally up the points, but it's quite easy just to do on a notepad. And that basically is how you play the ITC and what it is. If you've got any other questions about the ITC, obviously I'd be more than happy to answer them, so you can comment below. We'll have a little conversation about the ITC. I really like the ITC. I also like the Warhammer missions as well, especially the new ones in chapter approved. But the ITC is created because it's meant to be fair. It's like they've tried to make a competitive, fair way that every army has a chance. You know, whereas some of the Maelstrom missions and things like that can be a bit one-sided, but I do think in chapter approved 2018 they've made them missions a lot fairer and a lot more balanced. So I really like those missions as well. But yeah, the ITC is great. Obviously they play at the LVO, which is Frontline Gaming's big tournament. So yeah, comment below if there's any questions. If not, you can go over to the website of Frontline Gaming. Like I said, it's in the description. All of the information is on there. You can find out everything you need to know. You can find out where all of the tournaments are taking place and stuff like that. Also, you can go to the Best Coast Pairings app and you can see leaderboards for tournaments. You can see the leaderboards overall. Because in the ITC, if you go to a tournament and you then accumulate points, and you get put on like the world leaderboard and stuff like that, which is quite cool. So you can see where you are in the world against everyone else. So you can see where you are, I think, in your country against everyone else. So it's quite cool. But thanks for watching, and I hope you found this useful. We'll be doing a few more videos and guides and things like that on things like ITC, one for the ETC, and general for Warhammer 40k. So thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.